Welcome to the last and 10th and last round of the second Indore International Grandmaster Chess Tournament being held at the IPS Academy here at Indore from 9th of January, and today is the 7th day and we are having the last round. Let's see what is the position at the end of 9 rounds. Because last round we are just going to decide who the champion will be and who will win the trophies. So at the top boards we have two players, Boris Savchenko and Alexei Fedorov, leading the field with 7.5 points of 9, and they're followed by 3 players on 7 points each. The Adi of Goa, and from Kerala we have Gautam Krishna, and where the Vietnamese Grandmaster Nguyen who is playing on the top board. This tournament has attracted 131 participants from 16 countries, and the prize money of 21 lakhs will be given to the winners today. The tournament also had a challenger session. This is a masters section. There is a challenger section which had a prize fund of 14 lakhs rupees, so totally 35 lakhs rupees prize fund. And the tournament is sponsored by various organizations. The major sponsors are Indore Waste Management, Red Cross Society, Path Foundation, Naveen Florin, Goel Group, HDFC Bank, Dilip Buildcon, Kirloskar Brothers and Mega Developers. It's being conducted at the IPS Academy, and let's see how the games go. If you look at the final ranking after the 9 rounds, and though Fedorov and Savchenko are the same points, Fedorov has a better tie break, and in case Savchenko and Fedorov tie after the last round, then Savchenko will get only the second position, provided somebody else doesn't overtake him. And if Adi joins Savchenko with the same points, like if Savchenko makes a draw and Adi wins, then has a good chance of finishing second, because he has a second best tiebreak after Alexei Fedorov. So let's see how the games go. The top board, we have 2 grandmasters, Nguyen from Vietnam and Savchenko from Russia, playing an interesting game. And this game, a very sharp variation by Nguyen. Nguyen wants to play for a win, and probably Boris also will have to play for a win for the result which has taken place on the second board, which we'll see. So c5 is the more direct move here, d6, knight f3 and c5. Standard way of playing this, d5, a6, a4, e6, bishop c4. ed5 would be a normal move here, but knight f6, pawn into pawn, bishop into pawn, bishop into bishop, pawn into bishop. At this stage, white seems to be a bit better. White has various plans to play knight c3 followed by eventual f5 after castle, and to queen e2 and queen c4 subsequently. But the one is to break the pawn structure immediately. Not that it will offer any tangible advantage, but yes, a possibility. Pawn into pawn, queen into queen check, king into queen, knight into e5. It's clear that black has some weaknesses and lost the right to castle, but it's not a fantastic position for white. And as long as black doesn't lose a rook in knight f7 check, nothing much is going to happen. King c7 looks like a normal move, followed by knight bd7 or knight c6. I think this game is leading for the equal game. And let's move to board 2. The result has already come. Alexei Fedorov, as he has the best tiebreak, a draw would suffice for him to win the championship unless Boris Savchenko wins his game on the first board. So now we have this game. Gautam Krishna of Kerala has played extraordinarily well. He has defeated 2 grandmasters here. Marat Zumaev of Uzbekistan, and he yesterday defeated the top seed P. Inyan of Tamil Nadu, India. So let's see how the game goes. Gautam needs only half a point to get his international master norm, and Fedorov is reasonably confirmed of the top spot if he draws. So I think both the players could be happy with a draw, and we see these facts reflecting. White plays a simple line, black plays black challenges, and now the main line where white plays for a win starts with bishop g5, but white goes bishop c1, and the best move for black is knight f6. So bishop e3, knight g4, bishop c1, knight f6. The game was claimed drawn by threefold repetition. As we see, we have a specific position here and the same position after 5 moves, and the same position has arisen after 7 moves, and the same position has arisen after 9 moves. So the position is repeated 3 times and the player has the right to claim a draw by that, and one of the players has claimed a draw. So congratulations to Gautam Krishna on his first international master norm, and Fedorov has consolidated his position and is assured of the second position. And if Boris doesn't win, if Savchenko is not able to win, then Fedorov gets the championship trophy itself. So excellent decision, safe decision considering the earlier results. The tournament is not being played in knockout system, but it's being played in the Swiss League system, where every player, all the 131 participants, play 10 games each, and the one who has the best score among that gets the championship. So a player gets 1 point for a win, and if it's a draw, then both the players get half point each, and if you lose, you don't get any points. The total tally is added at the end of the tournament, and there you have the final result of the ranking decided on that. If the players tally on a specific point, there are different tie breaks which give the result, and the tie break seems to be best for Fedorov at the moment, and in the tournament it's second best for Ameyawaddy, but Ameyawaddy is half a point behind. So let's see how he is doing. Ameyawaddy stands excellent chance of winning the second position if he wins the game. So let's see how his game against Nilasa. Both of them are international masters, and let's see if there is a chance of a Grandmaster norm for them. Perhaps Ameya being on 7 point has some chance of a Grandmaster norm. Let's see. Knight f3, knight f6, b3, g6, bishop. Standard position, d6. White plays d4 to stop e5. One of the fashionable lines. The main line, of course, like in English system, English opening, goes with c4 and black plays e5. But here is an attempt to prevent e5. So black plays c5 instead. Interesting decision. e5 can be played as well, but this is also a good move. And c5, c4. Usually, I think supporting the bishop could be advisable. Maybe bishop g2 is more accurate than this move c4. It certainly creates black some threats. Black is able to create some threats along the a5 even diagonal and the g7 b2 diagonal, rather a1 h8 diagonal, where the bishop on g7 could put pressure on d4 point due to the hanging position of bishop on b2. When a pawn attacks pawn, it's not really great. White, in general positions, white can exchange the pawns with pawn into pawn. But here, because the bishop on b2 is hanging, white is not able to play dc5, which means that the d4 pawn could become weak. Black is threatening queen a5 check. And let's see how the game goes. Knight fd2, played after 17 minutes of thought, probably a forced move. And here, black has a nice move, queen a5. Which Ameya played in 5 minutes, and white already has some problems. The d4 pawn is under attack, and then there goes e3 and knight c6. The d4 pawn is further attacked, and bishop g2, knight into d2. So this is what black has been aiming at, and if white takes the pawn, takes the knight, recaptures the knight with the queen or with the knight, white eventually has problems with the d4 pawn, and queen into d2, though it can't be ruled out. After queen into queen, knight into queen, and cd4, there's bishop into knight check. But as we can see, a very comfortable position for black for sure. And white plays an interesting move, bishop c3. He has taken quite some time. Let's go back to board 2. So let's go back to board 3 rather, and where we had this interesting game going on. So white finds an interesting move here, bishop c3, attacking the queen first and then intending to take. And the most interesting variation now comes with queen b6. And then what does black do here? What does white do here? Queen b6. Queen b6 was played. White seems to have a forced line, because if white wants to win the queen with pawn into c5, it would be a blunder, because black gives up the queen with bishop into c3. And then after pawn into c6 is knight d2 into b1, a discovered check by the bishop, and black also takes bishop into a1, which means black will have a rook and 3 minor pieces for the queen, and even after losing the b1 knight, black has a winning advantage. Another option after queen into d2, if c into d4, bishop into c6 check would be a blunder because of queen into c6 attacking the h1 rook, which means that white must give up the bishop right now, bishop into knight check, and then take on d2 immediately as well. So let's see, bishop into knight check looks like a forced move played in a minute's time, and pawn into c6 and queen into d2. So black has a comfortable game. Black would exchange on c5, black plays castles, pawn into pawn, bishop into queen into c5. So black certainly has a very comfortable position. White's king could be very weak on g1 because of the awkwardly placed pawns. The e2 and g2 pawns have moved, which means the f3, h3, g2 squares could really be weak, and it's probably necessary for white to exchange queens with bishop into g7 followed by queen d4 check. Playing middle game in this position could be very risky, and Nilesh is deciding on that. Probably has already taken some time. Let's see how the things go on the fourth board. On the fourth board, we are Igor Glek and Ratnakaran playing on 6.5 points each, and Ratnakaran plays his favorite French defense. So e4, e6, this is a French defense, d4, d5, and knight c3, knight f6, the standard version, bishop g5, bishop e7, e5, knight fd7, bishop into e7, queen into e7, and f4. One of the oldest lines in French defense. White tries to get some advantage. This line was popularized by Alexander Alik and many other players. The normal move here is c5, Ratnakar goes for b5. Well, interesting idea perhaps. Wants to drive away the knight or develop the bishop first. White seems to be very comfortable here, and f5. A standard move in most of Ratnakaran's game, and because he is very good at close positions, he prefers to play this. White should take here pawn into pawn and try to play for the weaknesses black has. Black didn't want to give an outpost at e5. Had black played queen into f6 or knight into f6, white would get a knight on e5, and black wants to deny that. So black plays g into f6, but creates another fundamental weakness which could be serious. Black prepares to castle on the queen side. a4, b4. There is an interesting move, e5 for white here. White didn't go for a5, so black goes castles. Again, queen e2 could have been queen e2 or a5. This interesting decision, goes for queen e2, provoking a5. Again, various options here. One is rook e1 and one is bishop a6, exchanging the bishops. Rook e1, rook e8, and now c4. Yeah, there are two plans here. Basically, c4 attacking d5 is a sound plan. The other is a bishop a6 before carrying out any operations. So c4 was chosen, a typical break, and pawn into pawn. So white has created a serious weakness in black's camp. On the king side, white knight will land at f5, and the bishop could go to b5 eventually. A seal file has been opened. In order to have a tangible advantage, white should move the queen here, and after moving the queen, white could put one rook on c1 and bishop on b5. The knight could go to f5. A lot of pressure. If you look at the position, the c7 pawn is backward pawn, and the majority by black on the queen side doesn't make sense. One interesting idea is to play queen f1 also, so that bishop can be traded with bishop a6 later. And a lot of time taken by Glek here. The simple plan could have been a5 first, but he chose to play knight g3 after 5 minutes of thought, and now for this move he goes queen e2 in 0 seconds. a5 was a possibility, trying to fix your target. Queen e2, and black goes a5, and now rook e1. Again, bishop a6 was the option. So rook e1 was played after 4 minutes of deliberation. Black moves the correct rook to e8, and white plays c4, where white takes another minute, and now king b8, pawn into pawn, pawn into pawn. And here white has taken quite some time, almost 20 minutes, deciding where to move the queen, queen f1 or queen f2. No other squares don't to be so good, but seem to be so good, but queen c2 cannot be ruled out because it puts direct pressure against the c6 and c7 point. So queen c2 and queen moves rook e c1 is also a possibility, but black queen would move to f4 attacking the queen. Queen d2, probably a vague position. If white wants to plant knight on f5, then perhaps queen d2 could be a good move, but I think queen f1 should be the most logical move here. The difference in queen d2 and other moves is that after queen d6, black gets a tempo by attacking f4, whereas queen d2 prevents a tempo after queen d6. At the same time, the queen is not well placed on d2. It's used for defense, but it's not attacking any point. So again, a interesting position where white should be better. Let's see how the game goes on. And we have Grandmaster Marat playing on the 5th board, white pieces against top seed Inyan. Inyan is on 6 points and Marat is on 6.5 points. So if Marat wins, then Marat is in contention for the trophy. The rest of the games from game 6 to till 66 do not really have any chance of any medals now, although there are lucrative prize money for everybody. There are quite a few prizes and various category prizes as well. So players keep on trying their best to win in their category, but the main prizes, the top 3 prizes, the positions will be decided from the top 5 boards. We'll concentrate on top 5 boards now because we're looking for the champions. Zumai plays a committal move, gives up the center pawn, move, is ready to move get the central pawn moved to a different square and doubled pawns, but black doesn't want to exchange. Black wants to drive back the knight with e6, but if direct e6 would have been met with knight into f6 check. So now black is planning to play e6, knight e3. Black has a normal plan here of castles followed by f5. Black goes queen b6, f4, bishop a6. Black delays castling and is waiting for attack f5 and b4, interesting position, f into e6. So black is deprived of the right to castle here, and knight f4. Already some initiative has started. So strange decision to play on the queen side, queen b6 and bishop a6, when castles look like the most obvious move, but it had its own problems because of knight g4. The over-ambitious queen and bishop moves, I think it is logical to play knight f6 and perhaps also support the knight and queen c6 knight and eventually play f5. Queen b6, very ambitious. He wants to play bishop a6, b4 and then attack the c3, but white is launching an attack. Knight g4 here may not be so good. He takes pawn into pawn, pawn into pawn, and knight f4. Knight f4 immediately hits at black's position. The e6 pawn is under attack, and well, white has taken quite some time here for 1 or 2 minutes for f5 and 3 minutes to capture and 9 minutes to attack this pawn, and black is thinking. So let's go back to the top board where we can say we have a championship game going on, and in case Savchenko wins, he gets the championship. Otherwise, there could be a tie with, if there's a draw, then he ties with the other player, the Alexei Fedorov, the one who has better tie break and has already reached 8 points. So d5 we have here, and a4, e6, bishop c4, knight f6, pawn into pawn, bishop into pawn, bishop into bishop, pawn into bishop. White has several pawns here as we were discussing this position. Black also has a lot of plans. Knight c6, knight d4 is one of the plans for black after short castle. White goes for e5, which means it's a slow technical battle because black has lost the right to castle, but not really a tangible advantage. King c7 to stop knight f7 check, and king c7 and knight c6 or knight d7 look natural. The e6 pawn is slightly weak, but nothing serious. And well, we are stuck at this position for last 46 minutes. Something is wrong because white wouldn't have taken so long after this, so something wrong with that. Let's go to board 3, where board 2 we already saw. It ended in a draw, actionless draw, and the most interesting game we have is the game between Nilesh Shah and Ameya Odi. Nilesh Shah is from Calcutta, Ameya Odi is from Goa, and castles and pawn into pawn, queen into pawn. And yeah, I think we have the same position for some time now. And I'm sure something is wrong here. The Russian theoretician Igor Glek is now playing for Belgium, and let's see what happens in this game. We had left at this stage when White was deciding where to move the queen, and okay, we are still at that position. White seems to have taken a lot of time, something wrong probably. And again we go back to the game between Marat and Inyan, top seed Inyan, not in a fantastic position. And we'll have to decide how to guard this weakness. And knight d8 looks like a possibility, but White is ready with queen coming to g4 sometimes and attacking e6. So White is going to penetrate on the king's side, and bishop a6 and queen b6 are a difficult sort of configuration where queen is supporting the bishop is keeping attack on d3, but they are hanging, and it's not easy to really guard against White's attack if Black has to keep its pieces in this way. So we are seeing the last round, the 10th and the last round of the second Indore International Grandmaster Chess Tournament 2024 being played at the IPS Academy here from 9th of January. Today is the 7th day of the 8th day of the championship, and the 10th round is taking place as the last round in Swiss League tournament. So there is no knockout format. There are 2 players who have 7.5 points from 9 games, and there are 3 players who have got 7 points from 9 games, and there are 3 players who got 6.5 points from 9 games. And these are the players, these are the 8 players who will get the medals here. They are at the top position. The Swiss League tournament is a tournament where your final tally is the important criteria of the tiebreak. It is not what happened to the individual encounter. Mainly it is the final tally of points, and thereafter the final tally of your opponent's points. If you have played stronger opposition, then your tiebreak is better. If you look at the tiebreak here, I think the best tiebreak he has is therefore Alexei Fedorov, and the second is for Amir Audi, who is a half point behind, and then we have the reasonably good tiebreak for Boris Savchenko. So let's go back to board 1. If there are any moves made, further moves, we left at this stage, and let's have a look at. We are still at board 5 here. Yeah, let's go at board 1 first and see important game. We'll look at the board 5 game. Okay, the position is the same, so you're not getting the moves. We'll go to the 5th board then, where International Master Ratnakaran is playing against Boris Glek, who is now playing for Belgium, originally a Russian, and here too we have the same position. So White seems to be taking a lot of time, but sometimes it's illusion, and we don't really know what time is going on. So very interesting type of tournament with players with a rating of 2000 also playing for the FIDE Master norms and International Master norms. The International Master, 25 of them trying to get the Grandmaster norms, and there are 10 Grandmasters from all over the world taking part in the event in order to get the prize money. So trophies and prize money is a consideration for the Grandmasters, and for the International Master the major concern is the Grandmaster norms, and for untitled players they are trying to get their International Master norms. So everybody plays fighting chess till the end, and we could have a result of the event in a few hours. So let's have a break here for 5 minutes, and then we'll resume our streaming. We're expecting some guests and some parents. Chess has always been a very important activity in many parts of the country. In South India, generally chess is played at every household, and it's the original. It's the chess originated in India. The game of chess originated in India, and about 2000 years back, and now it's being played in more than 205 countries. In the chess Olympiad last year, we had as many as 186 countries participating in the Olympiad, over 2,000 players. That was a record number in 2022, and now we are at a stage where our chess playing public is in a sort of Olympiad fever. They're in chess fever. There, everybody wants to play tournaments. Everybody wants to see tournaments, and let's see how the players play, how they plan. Let's have a break for 5 minutes here. I'll see you after 5 minutes, please. So welcome back to the 10th and the final last round of the second Indore International Grandmaster Chess Tournament being held at the IPS Academy here since 9th of January. 9 rounds are over and we have two players leading with 7.5 points each. Alexei Fedorov is one of them and the Boris Savchenko. Fedorov is from Belarusia, Savchenko is from Russia. They have already played with each other, which means they are playing somebody with a different point. We have 3 players on 7 points and we have 3 players on 6.5 points. So the top 5 positions will come only from these players. It's top board or 4 or 5. Let's see the game 2 first, the game on the board 2 first, because Fedorov has a better tiebreak than Savchenko, and that's a very important factor. Here we had a very interesting tournament where we have a player who is has a best tiebreak and is at least second if makes a draw, and is likely to come first by a draw because the tournament is being played in a Swiss League tournament, Swiss League map pattern where the total number of points matter, not the result in the last round. His opponent Gautam Krishna from Kerala is playing for his international master norm, for which he needs half a point. So I think both the players are very happy with the draw here. Chess is a specific rule of draw by agreement or draw by repetition. When the game cannot be won, then it has to be declared drawn, and that is why the second board game is more relevant. Both the players are quite happy with the draw. Fedorov gets assured second position and excellent chances of a top position if Savchenko fails to win. So quite a comfortable prize, about 90% possibility of winning the tournament with a draw. And we have here Gautam, who gets 100%, I mean he gets his norm, that's as per the calculation. If he loses, he doesn't get the norm. If he wins or draws, he gets the norm. Doesn't really matter. So bishop e3, a simple opening, not offering a draw. I think players are not allowed to offer a draw probably so early, but suggesting a draw because there is bishop g5. White has 2 lines now. If white wants to play for a win, white goes bishop g5, and if white is happy with a draw, white goes bishop c1. Then black must go back with the knight because it's not well placed, and it seems that white is quite happy with the draw. So knight f6 and bishop e3, knight g4 and bishop c1. So there we have Alexei Fedorov, who is assured of the second position and perhaps a first position, excellent chances of first position. We have FIDE master Gautam Krishna, who makes his first international master now. Gautam Krishna is from Kerala. So very important result which will have effect on the other games. And now we go to the top board where Grandmaster Nguyen of Vietnam is playing half a point behind Boris Savchenko. Both the players have different points, and Savchenko has 7.5. He wins this game, then he's outright champion. If he draws this game, he could come second or third. Why? Because there's someone on the third board who has a better tiebreak than him, and if that player wins, then on a draw, Savchenko could go to the third position. But otherwise, he has a reasonable chance of second position, and is assured of the title, the championship trophy, if he wins this game. So game starts in a very sharp line. At this stage, both the players want to play for win because Nguyen is a sharp player, and since he's half a point behind, in order to get a medal, he must win this game, and he stands some chances of getting a medal by winning this game. So he plays a sharp opening, Austrian attack, and Savchenko goes with a typical Soviet way of playing against this. Most of the Soviet players, this specific idea of playing c5 in this position was played by Grandmaster Boleslavsky first, and it's been followed by many top players. It's a very common idea. Direct c5 is also possible. d6 and c5. White goes d5. The Benoni setup, which means that white is fighting for an advantage. Black goes a6, a4, and now black breaks e6. Black wants to do exchange in center and then open the e file against the white king or against white's e4 pawn. Bishop c4, a logical way of defending that. Pawn into pawn would be a normal move for black, exchanging pawns. Black goes with knight f6, which means that he's willing to take weak pawns. But black has tackled the problem of development. Black has a reasonable development, a little better than white. White has two, three plans here. White could look forward to play f5 break in long run, where white goes knight c3, castles, and then tries for f5. In that case, black could play knight c6 and try to put the knight on d4 after castling. And the other plan is to spoil the black's pawn structure immediately with e5, but not a very ambitious option. When white plays e5, the knight and the pawn are attacked, so black will have to capture the pawn, and then white eventually takes on e5 with a knight, leaving black with a weak pawn on e6, isolated pawn which is not supported by, which is not likely to be supported by any other pawn. Such pawns are considered to be weak. At the same time, it's an endgame, and it's not easy to attack this point because the white has exchanged the light colored bishop. So objectively, white doesn't have much in this ending, except that black has moved the king. The logical move is king c7, and black is now ready to play knight bd7. Black wanted to play knight c6 here, so pawn is attacked. I think black should play here knight d7, and it should be a interesting position. Something wrong with the clock, but now let's move the board 3, where we have Nilasha playing with 6.5 points against Amey Audi. Nilasha is from West Bengal, Amey Audi is from Goa. It's an international master. Both of them are international masters. Amey has excellent chances of getting Grandmaster title soon. I don't know if this game, in this game, if he gets a norm by winning this game, but surely he gets a most probably a second position if he wins this game, and only in an exceptional possibility of Savchenko winning, then Amey could actually get third position. So playing sharp and to win is going to benefit. Position where white made some inaccuracies. Black is putting pressure at d4, and black would like to fix the target by moving the knight. When black moves the f6 knight, then the d4 pawn gets pinned because the b2 bishop is hanging, so the d pawn can't be moved, and it could become an easy target. So c4, a little careless move. Knight e4 played immediately, and then 17 minutes taken to play knight fd2, the only right move here, I think. And black took 5 minutes to play this move with quite a vague threats. The d4 pawn is attacked and must be guarded, and black attacks it further. It's clear that the pawn can't be guarded. Does it mean that black wins a pawn? No, white has a good defense here, and that's the reason why white took quite some time here, 17 minutes for this move, and white has seen what to do. And another almost 28 minutes for this move, because that's the only move that doesn't lose a pawn. So 28 minutes for the knight into knight, and here comes bishop c3, a nice move, queen b6. Again maintaining the attack against d4 pawn. If white takes queen into d2, there is cd4. But most importantly, if white tries to win the black material with d into c5, attacking the queen as well as attacking the g7 bishop, black simply gives up the queen with d into c5 can be met with bishop into c3. Now black is 2 pieces up, and white takes pawn into queen, pawn into b6, which means white has queen for 2 pieces. Then black takes the b1 knight with the d2 knight, so knight into b1, a discard check by bishop, which means 3 minor pieces for queen. And then after the king moves, black also takes the rook on a1, so black would have rook and 3 minor pieces for queen. White takes on b1 then, so yet black ends up with a rook and 2 minor pieces for queen, so that's a material benefit, that's an advantage. It's a big a blunder for white to play pawn into c5. Queen into d2 also is dangerous because of pawn into d4, and if bishop into knight check, then bishop into c6 check, then queen into c6, attacking the h1 rook and also attack the c3 bishop. White is a forced move that doesn't lose a pawn, but it's a quite an unfortunate move to having to give up this bishop, and now white has taken the pawn. Pawn into d4 looked more natural, but also bishop into d4 was leading to similar position. And now comes castle. White plays pawn into pawn, queen into pawn. It was possible to play, if black wanted to maintain queens, bishop into c3 was a possibility, followed by taking on c5, and if white goes pawn into b6, then after bishop into d2 check and a into b6, black would have slightly better ending. So black has to decide. Queen c5 exchanges the bishop but prevents exchange of queens, and bishop into c3 prevents exchange of queens. The direct queen c5 allows queen exchange, and I personally would prefer bishop into c3 here, queen into c5, bishop g7, king g7. Black has a bad king. If black castles, then there's a chances of getting checkmated on g2 because there's no piece to guard the light squares, and black is ready with queen h5 followed by bishop h3, queen f3. Black is wanting to penetrate, but white gets a chance to exchange queens, a forced move, and after queen into queen, pawn into queen, black plays a5, trying to weaken white's position with a4. White must go knight c3, and bishop goes to e6, and white goes king d2, and rook fb8. Black intends to play some counter-attacking moves with a4, which was also directly a4 was a interesting possibility, but it had a tactical problem. a4 would have walked into knight into a4 and bishop into c4, knight b6. So now black wants to weaken the white structure with a4, and after knight into a4, bishop into c4, pawn into c4, rook into c4, pawn into c4, rook into a4. The equal exchange has taken place, but black's rooks are very aggressive and white is likely to lose a pawn. So threat of a4 and a rook e1. So he intends to take the e7 pawn in exchange. So simple idea is that white first wants to win a pawn with d5, and when black bishop moves the bishop, the e7 pawn is hanging, and white also prevents the move a4 because of both options, d5 as well as knight into a4, and the e7 points hang. The most logical move here is king f8, and I think black has a complete equality, but perhaps not more. Here we have Igor Glek, a theoretician from USSR, now playing for Belgium, playing against Indian international master K. Ratnakaran of Calicut Railways. And here Ratnakaran has played the opening in a very interesting manner. We have a standard position here, a6, not a very popular move, knight f3, b5. Normal move here is c5, goes for b5, bishop d3. Yeah. So I think we are going to have a position where we have a complex game. White should be better here, and f5, Ratnakaran's favorite move. He likes to play the close games. White correctly exchanges the pieces, and after that castles, and we have white with slight advantage. Black has too many weaknesses, and let's see what happens to this game. Let's move to the next board, where Zuma Imarat is playing against topseed Inyan. Topseed Inyan is half a point behind, and Marat seems to be in a good position. Inyan has a weak king, but he has taken measures to give up a pawn. So fine, if it's a bad king, okay, but he has got a he has at least castled. Surely a position white is everything good about the position for white, and black has some serious problems. Apart from being a pawn down, white knight is going to land at d5. I think unreasonable to expect equality here. Inyan could get back the pawn with pawn into c3, but knight coming to d5, and a lot of complications, and white stands much better because of the weak black king. Let's have a break for a couple of minutes, and we'll have some guests, the participants who want to share their views, who have finished their games. So we'll meet after 2 minutes. Welcome to the 10th and last round of the second Indore International Grandmaster Chess Tournament. The two players leading with 7.5 points out of 9. There are 3 players on 7 points trying to catch up with them, and then 3 players on 6.5 points. We have some guests, parents of talented players, and I think they're here to share their experiences and know about how to go about a common question to a chess parent, at how to improve and how to be better than at chess. I think it's an ambition of every chess player to become better and better every day. So you're most welcome, and please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please share your views. Good afternoon.
Sir, how to make balance between academic and chess, both?
Well, I think there has been some research about it, not only now, but that chess player develops some faculty where chess player doesn't need as much time as the other children need. So there was one specific experiment by Garry Kasparov in 2013, wherein in the Dortmund University, the experiments were done, and it was proven that chess players, just by taking classes of chess, they were not chess players, but by taking classes of chess, the students improved in their academics. So that's the reason why Germany has also made it a subject in the optional subject in the curriculum. So you don't have to worry about that. I remember the case of Lalit Babu, Grandmaster Lalit Babu, and S.L. Narayan, who were playing chess tournaments 10 months. Both of them were my students once, and S.L. Narayan came first in the Trivandrum board exams by scoring 1,400 marks out of 1,400, while he was out of Trivandrum for 10 months. So I think you don't have to worry about that. Chess does take care of, it saves time, because it improves your memory, it improves your skill, it improves your concentration, and also it creates a sort of more discipline in a thinking process. So you channelize things and you are able to get the data whenever you want quickly.
Okay. Hello, I am Vivan Saraugi's mom, Suchita Saraugi. We are from Nagpur, and he has recently claimed the candidate master title.
Excellent, so, congratulations.
Thank you. My concern is, like, when he was 1300 to 1400 rated, his concern was like if his opponent would be a higher rated, then he would be just before the start of the tournament, he would have some pressure, like his opponent is a bit higher rated. Now the change in the shift is when he plays against a lower rated opponent, because he's already crossed 1900. So when he faces an opponent with a bit lower rating, he still has that pressure. Like, he is more comfortable playing the higher opponent rather than the lower rated opponent. So how do we handle this? Like,
yeah, the first thing you have to make it clear that performance consciousness in any sport is one of the major reasons why players do not do best. Like, even we look at the gold medal winning performance in Olympic Games, it's often not their best game. Even case of Neeraj Chopra, that was not his best score, but he got. So it's something which players have to learn to avoid, and performance consciousness doesn't help anybody. So that's one of the reasons. Now, if you're looking at rating, what happens is, if you're playing against a lower rated player, then if you make a draw, you lose some points. And that is where if you make a draw against a high rated player, you gain some points. So there's somewhere a security or safety, the angle that, okay, I can even make a draw and I still don't lose anything, and against a lower rated player, okay, I make a draw, I lose some points, but you lose some points, you gain some other points. So rating is not a major criteria, and that can be a criteria in your agenda for 6 months or 1 year. Rating cannot be a criteria or a consideration for one game or one tournament. So that, I think, you have to make it clear. If you lose a game and lose some rating points, there's the next game where you could recover. And even in a tournament, if you did badly, I remember some of the great personalities in Karpo's autobiography cum biography. He had lost, when he was top seed, he lost 2 games in a tournament when he was junior. And in his own book, he said, I can still make it. And he actually made it. He became the champion. That's before he became world junior champion. This is the experience quoted by him. So I think there's always a chance to recover. So there's nothing to worry, and that the children should know, parents should help them out in this particular angle, because it has nothing to do with chess or the ratings. You lose some rating, you sometimes gain the rating.
Thank you.
Sir, Prakhar Bajaj, my son, his rating is 2255. In future, which type of tournament want to play? Please suggest it.
Yeah, I think he should try to play a tournament where he will face half of the opponents who are as good as him, or around the same strength. It's not easy to find such tournaments, but because we play a lot of stress tournaments, we must play some stress tournaments, but we also try to play some very tough tournaments where you should be prepared to do badly. The reason for this is when you play stronger opposition, you come to know new defensive patterns which we never come to know across weaker players. And the best experience is to play against stronger players. You always improve or learn something when you play a stronger player. It doesn't happen with the players which are much worse than you. Around the same strength is good, so you should restrict to, you should avoid tournament where somebody, the next seed is say 300 points below him. There should be someone around 40-50 points range, a few players. That's, I think, tournament should be good. And this type of non-tournaments, I think, must. He was in a run for the norm. I don't know what is the position now, but he at one stage he was very close to making norm.
Yeah, in this tournament he got right now 5.5 points. And the last tournament is going on. I don't know the result.
But I think he was at the top tables. He was in top 15 tables most of the time in the initial stages. So now he's got a good opposition. So let's see, the result will be there. But yes, this is a tournament where he could be more focused or more motivated. Focus is fine. Focus is not a problem, but very often there has to be some incentive. If you do well, you really get something. So I think that seems to be doing well, working in. Yeah. So it's good to play such tournaments.
Okay, thank you, sir.
In the recent tournaments, what we have faced is Vivan has lost some of the winning games under time pressure in the end game, because he spends so much time in the opening. He finds very less, like he almost plays under seconds, within seconds in the end game. And that's where he makes a mistake or blunders and loses the winning game. This has happened so many of the times. So would you suggest any tip how to handle this?
I think today the players are so busy preparing opening that they don't study end games. And it's a major problem that Indian players are not good in end game. I'll just quote something from Grandmaster Boris Gelfand, world number 2, has said. He was just giving a class when I was also watching then, and at that time he said we will study some pawn endings, and there were some players who were not happy about it. So he said that okay, let's see why we need to study pawn endings and endings. He said, how many times have you reached pawn endings? And probably the reply was 2 or 3 or 4, and that's the reason why players who have played 200 or 500 or 1000 games, if they have reached pawn ending only 2 or 3 times, then why it should be studied. Now he came to an important point. He said, I myself have reached pawn ending less than 10 times. There are at least 200 occasions on which either I or my opponent have avoided the pawn ending by discarding the moves which lead to pawn ending, the last exchange of pieces. So now that's quite a large number, because if you're taking a decision based on the assessment of the pawn ending or assessment of the ending, if you're going to take a decision in the middle game based on that, then you need to know which is a better position for you. And that's the reason for endgame study. And that's importance. Even top level players, many of them don't know. There's some grandmasters who didn't know that, and only Gelfand had to clarify to some grandmasters that this is the case, that in order to discard a move or choose a move in a middle game, you need to have knowledge of endgame. So if they learn that, then probably they will learn the importance of endgame study. Endgame study is a must. Also, endgame study improves your tactical ability, because endgame has a straight tree. There's no judgment involved. You have to calculate. If you play by judgment, you are never going to succeed. So there's something like educated guess, but it's not judgment. And endgame, long endgame variations actually improve your tactical level. The ability to calculate longer is developed by endgame. So I am fascinated by endgames, and we always study more endgames in our groups rather than the middle games.
That was really great input from you, sir. Thank you.
It was by my girlfriend, not by me.
Sir, Prakhar always came in time pressure. In opening, he thinks a lot, and middle and ending game, he came in time pressure. So, how will manage the time during the games?
Normally, opening preparation is now helped with computers, and very often the moves which do not occur to human beings are played by computers. At the same time, the computer tells you which is the best move here. Computer will tell you why to play this move, because there is no. It's like using a calculator. A calculator doesn't tell you the answer of 32 into 678. It can give you the answer, but when you have different mathematics, you again have to use a calculator, and that is where in the game you can't use a computer. So at that time, the thinking process, which is depending on computer, comes in. The reason for time trouble in modern days is mainly because of when the players prepare the opening, they prepare up to this position. It's good equality, and at that stage, suddenly they don't know what is to be done next. So simple thing is the thinking process. My way of looking at it: what is to be done and why it is to be done. That should be clear before you choose a move. If that is a knowledge part, what is to be done and why it is to be done, there has to be logic, and how to do it is the third part of it. That's the implementation. That should be left on the board. What happens is generally we prepare openings, so we often know what is to be done roughly, not in a depth, and also why it is to be done. We never had time to, because we prepared till the start of the game, just a few minutes before the game we stopped preparing. So why this move has been chosen, we don't know. And then the implementation portion becomes difficult because we don't know why this moves. So why this move has been recommended by computer or by Carlson or Anand, players spend a lot of time on thinking on that data. Why this and what's the purpose of this? This can be avoided when you prepare a variation and you stop at a particular stage and then you say, okay, I'll think 15 minutes, what do I do next? So your preparation ends, you are in the equal position. Just give 15 minutes thinking that if I get this position, what should I do? And if you have thought about it at home, you save those 15 minutes. So that is where you have found out why something is to be done. So that could be done at home. That's a very common thing. And when there are no books, very often my friends and the contemporary players, they said that I used to set a particular position on the board before leaving, and I said today I am likely to reach this position. It happened many times. So Neeraj Mishra, international master, he asked me how are you able to get it. So I said I study opponent as well, and I study the position, and I know what is the opponent plays, and thereafter how the game will go on, I have already thought about it. So opponent may not have thought about it, how the game goes, but I used to do that, and I often got a position that's comfortable to me because I looked at that position in advance by moving the pieces sometimes. So I had an unfair advantage of moving the pieces and checking if I was playing correctly, whereas my opponent was facing it for the first time. That, I think, that's a very important tactic we must do. It's of course nothing unethical about it. You think about a position at home. That's very common. That's wisdom, I think.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir.
My last question would be, what do you think is better? Is the broader study of the variation or the in-depth study of a particular variation? I mean, like, should Viman practice so many openings and at a certain, till a certain limit, or only one opening in depth?
I think initially you should try quite a few openings because you never know what you are good at. And we'll go at a deeper level. One particular position is Kasparov with Karpov was very strong, and Karpov was able to beat everyone in that system. And as a child, when Kasparov started preparing, his coach, 5 times world champion Botvinnik, said that this is a system you have to avoid because Karpov is unbeatable in this, and that's the reason they prepared a different system. Or when Kasparov was playing against Anand, he had kept an alternate system ready which he had never played in his lifetime, and he won that. When he lost in his own system, he played a system which he had never played. So there are alternate variations do make a sense, but how do you know which position you are good at? And that is where I'll quote one of my examples. One of my friends, Sharat Tilak, international master and FIDE trainer, is only 3 years younger to me. We were friends first, and then he started playing chess. So I mean, reasonable tournament chess. So he had a fancy, he liked a particular, as a beginner, he liked a particular opening French defense, and I saw that French defense was not suitable to his style. And whenever we had arguments with French, the arguments are different. Then he said French defense is a good opening. And that's one of the questions. So I advised him that you play in next tournament, you play alternatively French and Sicilian. And he played 9 games with Black in 2 tournaments. He played 5 Sicilian, out of which he won all 5 games. He played 4 French, out of which he drew 1 and lost 3. So I said, French better or Sicilian is not the topic of, you are not a good French player. And he accepted that and he stopped playing that. So I think that is where you have to try several openings to come to know what you are good at and not good at.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So okay, thank you for joining, and we'll concentrate on the game. We'll have a break
we'll
have a break for a couple of minutes, and then we'll be joined by some players. So
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the last and 10th round of the second Indore International Grandmaster Chess Tournament being played at the IPS Academy from 9th of January here. A tournament has a field of 131 participants from 16 countries and 4 continents, and we have 10 Grandmasters, 2 women Grandmasters and 25 International Masters playing this. More than half of the players are international title holders, which means that they already have a graduation degree, and this battle is being fought, and today is the day that will decide the trophies. We have 2 players with 7.5 points, we have 3 players with 7 points, and 3 more players with 6.5 points. This tournament is being conducted in a Swiss league pattern, which means that everybody plays 10 games, and the one who has maximum score at the end of 10 rounds becomes the champion. If there's a tie, then there are various tie-breaking regulations. The tournament has a prize fund of 35 lakhs. In the Masters event, it's 21 lakhs which is going on, and there's also a Challengers event which had a prize money of 14 lakhs rupees, and all these big monies have come from our sponsors: Indore Waste Management, Red Cross Society, Path Foundation, Navin Florin, Goel Group, HDFC Bank, Dilip Bilkon, Kirloskar Brothers, and Mega Developers. We have as our guest 2 participants from the tournament, young participants who played in this tournament and had good results. So how is your experience, and how do you think you're playing chess, progressing, and anything you would like to know, please let us know. How you prepare, what do you do, what is your rating, and how you have been playing, how long you have been playing. Welcome.
Hello sir, I am Rishabh Kumar. I am nearly 12 right now. I started playing chess around 5. I gained the enthusiasm in playing chess from my sister. She is 4 years older to me. And so I was runner-up in nationals under 7.
Great.
And right now my rating is around 1600. So this tournament was a different experience. I was playing the Masters category. All the players were pretty sincere towards the games, and I enjoyed a lot playing this tournament.
Yes, but almost all your opponents are stronger than you?
Yeah, 400,
Yeah, so
300 points.
Yeah, so that's quite a tough time then, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And how are you?
I'm Kanishka Chaudhary from Bhopal, and I'm playing from last 5 years. My age is 12. And my rating is 1303.
So you played in which category? You played in the...
I played Challengers.
Challengers, and how was your experience? How did you like?
This experience was really nice. I scored 5.5 points out of 9.
Great, excellent. And how do you play nationals, both of you? How do you practice, and do you have any difficulties in preparing, or whatever you want to know? We could have a discussion on that, please. Yeah.
Yes, like I try at least devoting 5 to 6 hours to chess in a day if I am going to school, and if it's a weekend I try devoting 8 to 10 hours. So the problem I face is that I think a lot in the opening and the middle game. I go in time pressure, and then in the end game, even dead draw positions I lose during time pressure.
Okay, so I think
how to handle it?
Yeah, we have 3 different departments: opening, middle game, and end game, and all are as important. Opening generally not very important. It was once, but now it's important because a lot of material is available. Opening is the way, the path to the middle game. How you play the opening decides what you are going to do. It's like laying the foundation to your entire game, and end game, of course, is the outcome of the play in the middle game. So there are 3 departments which are equally important. Again, do you think that studying all these so many hours is really important? Because are you making notes about what did you learn on this particular day, or like every hour or every 2 hours, every 3 hours? If you think in terms of write a few sentences of what did you learn today and just add it up, that could be a very, do you do that?
Weekly, I make summaries of what I do.
And is it more or less in words, or is it just the variations in the opening?
In words.
In words. So what do you learn from, say, Anand's games and generally, or I mean, if you make this, that type of observation, and what type of notes are they?
Like suppose if I was studying end game and middle game that week, and I was watching classical games, so my notes would be kind of like in this type of end games, this type of play should be there. You should be playing counter attacking or defending the position, and how to win or draw that kind of position. In the middle game, the classical games, mostly the notes would be like what did the player do to beat the other player, how did he manage to defeat him, what was the opponent's mistake, and so on.
Yes, and I think that's very good. In that case, do you go through these notes sometimes? Because you
Yes,
sometimes
like the day before the tournament, I don't do much, but I have a book. I read the complete book, and that's it.
Okay, great. I think it's a great way of doing it. You have been doing very well, so you'll get good results soon. Time trouble has to be checked because you take a lot of time. So perhaps when you end the openings, you could have a look at that. If you're going to get a specific position which is played by, say, Anand versus Karpov, if you're going to play that position, then you should know what next, where you ended your preparation, you just think about what could be the next 3-4 moves. I think that's a very important way of looking at it, and endgame study is a must, because endgame is a test of your calculating ability. It improves your length of your calculation. So endgame study is a must, and understanding the pawn structures and strategic part of endgame is yes, but the calculation part of endgame is very important, and that cannot be done without trying to solve the endgames yourself rather than studying. And in case of vague endgames, there are some great players like Capablanca or Karpov who always won the position. Ulf Anderson, some of the players who always won the games irrespective of what objectively was. And like Kasparov in his own game, he points out that he made a draw against Grandmaster Georgiev when he was young, and when he offered a draw, he was really delighted. Georgiev was really delighted because the position was reasonably worse. And once in time trouble, I offered a draw to Grandmaster Spielmann. I had 2 bishops and a rook and a few pawns. He had bishop, knight, and rook and few pawns. I thought there was fairly obvious draw. I had only 5 minutes left. I offered even draw, and he immediately accepted. He said, "Well, it's not a time for you to agree to a draw, because it's only you could try. There could be only 2 results: either you win or a draw, and not a wise decision to make a draw, and wise decision for me to agree to a draw." So it's something we forget to think about. So we have to have more objective thinking process in endgame, and it does really improve. Studying endgame also improves our middle game because it gives better calculating ability.
Thank you.
Yeah, so how do you study, and how do you want to take your career further?
I practice 7 to 8 hours daily, and I'm a homeschool child. I don't go to school.
So okay, do you play practice games? Both of you, you need to play some practice games as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a practice partner who is around the same rating as yours?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you play them regularly, that should be a part of preparation, because if we believe the three important things said by 3 different world champions of greatest players of all times which are considered. First is William Steinitz, who was the best player in the world for 28 years after Paul Morphy, and he said chess is not for timid souls. So you have to be very courageous in every sport, not only chess. There is an element of uncertainty. In tennis, we see today Alcaraz, a day Alcaraz defeated Federer, the other time Alcaraz defeated Djokovic. In the next tournament, Djokovic defeated Alcaraz. So again, the uncertainty element is there every time. And when we make a good performance, that's a extraordinary performance. It is not our every time performance. So if you do well, do not set that as a compulsory target. Yes, you played well, and that is how you want to play, but it's not impossible that you don't play so strong in every tournament. So that's an aspect as well. We always tend to look our best performance as our standard. but perhaps our standard is a combination of our best performance and the worst performance. So that is where we need to cover, and we should need to play a lot of practice games, and we should generally plan what is to be done, why it is to be done, how it is to be done. But chess is not for timid souls, so you should be willing to take risk. Second is by Kasparov's trainer Mikhail Botvinnik, chess cannot be taught, it can only be learnt. So, you know, the videos or your trainers would try to teach you, but eventually you have to learn it yourself. The application of what you learn is what matters. A lot of knowledge is there. Almost all the players, about 2,700, know the exact data and what to do, and yet the results are different. So I think application portion is very important, and that's the reason why practice games, Dr. Lakhs says, that 2/3 of the time you, for example, you study 6 hours, then only 2 hours should be a study portion, and 4 hours should be the playing portion and the analysis of that. So that's, I think, a very important. So you play some practice games, analyze them, that is taken as, that should take 2/3 of your time, and the preparation should take 1/3 of time, as per the Dr. Emmanuel Laskar's suggestion, was world champion for 27 years.
So if I suppose I am practicing in a day for 5 hours, so how much time should I devote to what parts of the game, like the opening, middle game and end game?
Yeah, but first we are playing some practice games. Generally, if you are working 5 hours, then 2 hours should be given to playing a practice game. So you are studying the remaining 3 hours. So where opening and middle game you need not differentiate, as long as you are playing opening, opening which based on a specific middle game position, and with the knowledge of that, that is fine. And end game, I think perhaps 1/3 time or little less than 1/3, but opening and middle game, no need to separate it, because we are not just watching the variations, we are trying to find out the opening variation by linking it to the middle game. They take us to, and how we are going to play in that middle game. If we get an isolated pawn in the opening, we know the variation, but then we also have to try to find out how to justify what is the further play going to be. So think of openings in a way that's what is my plan due to this particular pawn structure and piece position. There are very interesting insight given by world number 2 David Bronstein. David Bronstein has said that in this opening, white has this plan and black has this plan, and he just gives a position where both the players have played as per the plan. Now he says white has played according to the plan and black has played according to the plan. If this position, now we need to tactically analyze if this position is good. If this position is good, then the opening is playable. If this position is not good for one side, then the entire opening variation may be unplayable. So that's also we see. So here is linking the opening with the middle game to be played from strategic point of view and also from tactical point of view. Like you say, if I get my knight to d5, I'm winning in this position, but you never get your knight to d5. So again, that's a subjective aspect which was brought in by Morphy and Fisher. The greatest, the most important thing is to study Greco's and Morphy's games, which teach you more than anybody else. And Greco particularly, you could probably see the defense was weak, so you could actually see the games very quickly. You could finish 10 games, 15 games every time from Greco, and that's important. But study the classics. It's like, and don't forget them, because the most important things in chess are safety of the king, safety of material, and then activity of pieces and center control. So doubled pawns, isolated pawn, weaknesses, good bishop, bad bishop comes after this. If the king is checkmated, then nothing else matters. So never forget these things. That's, I think, very important.
Yeah.
So what do you think of this position? White is probably playing for a win, and also black, but I thought that it was not a great choice to play e5 here, and almost impossible to win this endgame. But yeah, so here I think somewhere a great grandmaster, both great grandmasters who are playing for a win have made a sort of error. Black allowing this position and white probably playing this position for a win. Savchenko stands to come first by winning. So if he wants to win this, then perhaps he should not have played knight f6. That's what I feel. In that case, he should have taken a into d5. We don't know what. So this is a time to take a decision. For example, white is taking a decision, do I play for a win or do I play for a draw? If I play here, knight f6, black is taking a decision, what happens? Pawn into pawn, pawn into pawn, bishop into bishop, pawn. If white wants, white can almost force a draw with this move, because knight and pawn are attacked, so pawn into pawn. And this endgame, I see hardly any chances for either side. So when black plays, if black is playing for a win, then black could try e into d5, irrespective of it is good, whether it's good or bad. But that's a move black. So this is a time we need to take this, and now here we are linking a opening with middle game and middle game for 2 minutes and then an end game. So in 3 or 4 minutes we see we have at a very early opening stage, black makes a decision. Now a particular middle game has come, white has the option of forcing a drawish end game or continuing with knight c3. White takes a decision which black has to take into account at the time of playing knight f6, and now we see an endgame has come within 5 moves. The 5th move bishop c4 and 6th move knight into e. Already we have an endgame. So in 5 moves, middle game phase has come for 2 minutes. 2 moves. Here we have a middle game phase where white has multiple plans. White makes a plan and now we get endgame. So sudden transformation. So they are not different phases in your game. They are only a part of each other and they are linked to each other. That is, I think, something very important. You must take into account that.
starts.
So welcome back to the 10th and last round of the second Indore International Chess Tournament being held at the IPS Academy Indore from 9th of January. The tournament is Masters tournament. It's been conducted from 9th, and there's also a Challengers tournament which was conducted from between 11th of January to 14th of January. That tournament was for players below 2000, and this tournament is for the Masters. 131 players from 16 countries, including 10 Grandmasters, 2 women Grandmasters, and 25 international masters are participating in this event. Today is the last day, and that the medals will be decided today. Lucrative prize fund of 21 lakhs rupees is given for this tournament, and the Challengers tournament saw prize money of 14 lakhs, which is totally 35 lakhs, sponsored by various sponsors. We have our sponsors who are contributing to this cause. We have Indore West Management and Red Cross Society, Path Foundation, Navin Florin, Goel Group, HDFC Bank, Dilip Bilcon, Kirloskar Brothers, and Mega Developer. The tournament is being represented by 4 continents. There's nobody from Australia, but we also have a player from Peru, South America. We have a player from North America, USA itself, and a lot of players from Africa. Most of the countries from Asia are also being covered, and mainly South Korea's first appearance in an open type of event. South Korea had not made any appearance in tournaments before the Asiad this year, and now they have started playing the tournaments in the mainstream. At the end of 9th round, we had 2 players leading the field with 7.5 points, and they're playing on the top 2 boards. Boris Savchenko, who is now playing his game, and on the second board there was Alexei Fedorov, who had a better tiebreak. So both of them had 7 points, and 7.5 points, and there are 3 players with 7 points and 3 players with 6.5 points. The medals are going to be won by one of them. So top 4 or 5 boards are going to decide the top positions. And let's come to the game 1, where Savchenko has some chances of winning the championship. On the second board, as we'll see, a quick draw was made by Fedorov. The reason apparently seems to be that he has the best tiebreak in the tournament, and that means that if he draws, he's assured of the second position, and if Boris Savchenko fails to win, then Fedorov is assured of the first position. So he has almost 80 to 90% chance of coming first by making a draw. So he has chosen this path. His opponent, Gautam Krishna from Kerala, a very talented youth who needed half a point for first international master norm. Also, it's quite agreeable to draw because both of them gain by this draw, and the game ended, which of course has a direct effect on the board 1, because now that Savchenko knows that winning would lead to a possibility of becoming the champion. So this was the game, and we had left this position. This was the opening wings exchange. White has not really gained anything from the opening, and we had left at this stage. We were wondering what to do. The knight BD7 was a logical move, and many other options. Black took quite some time for King C7, and he has planned something. King C7 looked logical, but he took some time, which means that he had decided what to do. And here he took 10 minutes to exchange a pawn rather than guarding the pawn. So White is now compelled to take on C5, and Black takes on F4. What has Black achieved by that? I think Black has achieved something which is opening of the G7 bishop. The G7 bishop is hemmed because of the knight on E5 supported by the pawn, and the F4 pawn is not there, then knight would require to be moved, and that means the bishop on G7 gets stronger. A disadvantage that could occur is perhaps that the E6 pawn could be easily attacked, but let's come to the board, and knight D7, he didn't play direct knight F4, so he wants to play knight D7 and knight into D7, and is actually safeguarded the E6 point. The king, he has completed his development. White knight would have taken 2 moves, making a third move. That means a good development advantage. You see, because white knight made 3 moves and black knight made only 1 move, and that was exchange. So clearly, white hasn't completed the development and black has. So every piece movement and piece capture makes some significant, plays a very significant role in our assessment of the position and way we play. So black is not in a hurry to recapture the pawn, and white's pieces are being sort of driven to inferior positions, very passive positions. White doesn't want to waste time in castling, but I think castling was a viable option. G3, because knight on f4 is strong, but moving that knight would allow white to get rook to f7. So castles was a standard move, and knight d3 check, king e2, and rook d8. The knight has been guarded, yeah. And yeah. So well, we'll have a short break at this, and we're going to have some more guests after. So don't go away. Join me after 1 minute, please. So welcome back to the 10th and final round of the second Indore International Grandmaster Chess Tournament being played at the IPS Academy here since 9th of January. At the end of 9 rounds, we had two players with 7.5 points leading, and then 3 players following them closely with 7 points each, and 3 players next on 6.5 points. So the champions and the medal winners are going to come from this age. We're going to concentrate on the top 5 boards, and at the same time we have guests with us, parents of talented chess players, and to join this discussion. And welcome to you, and please let's join the stream. And
thank you so much for this opportunity. We are really very lucky to have we are very lucky to be here with you. Yeah, and he's guiding. Yeah, it's really a wonderful opportunity for us. Sir, like many other parents, I have also a question like how to select the tournaments. It's been 2 years my son is playing, and his rating is 1141. So many parents, they get confused about about the selection of tournaments. So how should we select the tournament?
General preference should be play tournaments where you are not the weakest player in the tournament and not the strongest player in the tournament. The general average rating of your opponent should be around 100 rating points, or not more than 150 rating. But if you're going to get lot of players above that or lot of players below that, if you're going to play a lot of unrated, try to avoid those tournaments, because sometimes playing against players who are 300, 400 points above you, and then the losing causes some sort of problems in the psychological problems, not chess related problems, but psychological problems. It's better to avoid. Try to be a sort of the commoner in that particular group. Don't try to be the, and best player is fine as long as the other players are good enough, and if you are just head and shoulders above others, then try to avoid those tournaments as well. Don't play for the just for the kick of winning championship.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Sir, one more question is like, should we rely on like online learnings? There are many platforms, and it becomes very difficult to choose the good chess material and the online sites, and there are online coachings also. So like what is the reliability factor? How should a child go for it, for the training?
I think online, because it's available, it's very easy. Like earlier, if you wrote a book on physics and you didn't know physics, nobody would buy that book. Now that is no longer there in online. So when I went to Russia for the first time in 1983, and the first thing I was told was a bad plan is better than no plan, but no coach is better than a bad coach. Now that is a serious problem, because you are learning from a book we don't know the credentials about. My criteria of selecting a book has always been I see who the author is, and if the author is good, then even whatever nonsense said by the author will mean something, and that's, I think, very important. So make sure that the author is really a good theoretician, and then because good author is not going to speak nonsense, and someone who is not a good player may be required to say nonsense just because it doesn't have the skills. So we can't know that, but it's better to know, and that's very important. I think choosing that. There's vast material available. The difference is, once there's no material available, we had to find out the moves ourselves. Now there's so much material available. There are more than 1.5 crores games available. Now what does one do at that games? And nobody is able to see 1.5 crore games. So again, excess material can be very confusing. What you need to do is, first, what we learn from that. If we learn something, what do you want to learn? For example, if you want to learn about isolated pawn, there is a specific topic, isolated pawn. This is refer to, so go through some books and some games where people have played very well with isolated pawn, or they have written good things about how to play isolated pawn. Similarly, there are different topics. Some like King's Indian Defense, there are some good books in Indian Defense, but generally the good book is always the one which tells you the plan, what to do without giving the exact moves. Because I'll just quote what the 3 greatest greatest trainers in the chess field have said. William Steinitz was the best player in the world for 28 years, and he says chess is not for timid souls. So I think that uncertainty element in every sport has to be taken into account, and we need to rise at occasion. Sometimes we see, if I play this, I could lose, but that's the thing I must do here. If I can't see, so that's one of the things. Second thing is that chess can't be taught, it can only be learned by 5 times world champion Mikhail Botvinnik, who is Garry Kasparov's coach as well. And of course, Dr. Emmanuel asked us a few things, is that most important thing, duty of it of course comes to the trainer. The duty of a teacher is to see that the pupil thinks independently. And the second part of it, when you're practicing, 2/3 of your time should be given to the playing of games, practice games, tournament games, and analysis of them, and only 1/3 part of their time should be devoted to collecting more information, because there's always a difference in information data and the sort of ability, the skills. So very often the knowledge of patterns is there, but it's not executed. What does it mean? It has been stored as a data and has not been converted into knowledge. It's very common, particularly in children, because they have a very strong memory and comparatively less reasoning power. So it happens that they memorize the things and they think they have understood it, but they are not actually understood it. So that's also a problem. We need to see, but how much did I learn? I think that is a very important question. How much did I learn by this lecture? If they are able to decide that, then I think it's a good beginning.
So like as you said, so learning, like going for chess training and then practicing on board. So how much time like a beginner child should give on practicing the board? What should be the percentage, like the chess training and practicing on board and playing chess tournaments?
Yeah, one important thing is that 2-dimensional is always easier to play than 3-dimensional. So when you're playing only on computer and doing online classes, then surely you play better level than what you are expected to do otherwise. So that one has to, whenever I have online class, I generally suggest that the students have their own boards, and they, as soon as I make a move, they make it on the board, they think of it on the board and reply, tell me the reply, or they make the reply on the board. That's, I think, a good thing, because eventually the titles and all recognition, whatever, it comes only from the tournaments which are, first of all, classical time control, and also they are the tournaments where you actually play in person. Online they have given some titles, but they are not of significance. If you are looking for excellence, then you have to be a good player playing on the board, and that I think you have to make sure.
Yes, sir. You have any question?
That's it. I mean, just a few more things, very small things, sir. The child is doing well. I mean, I think my child is doing well and he's learning. November 2021, he played his first tournament, and he's 11 years old, and he's in January 2024, and his rating is almost going to touch, I think, 1900. So he's doing well. The only point that I want to know is that I think there should be more tournaments in India. Our children, my child has not gone abroad so far, but I can see around many children, many kids are going abroad, playing there, getting their titles or increasing their rating and then coming back. So if, as Modi ji says that why go to Maldives, why not Lakshadweep? Similarly, why go to foreign countries and play chess over there? Why not in India? Why can't we increase the number of tournaments here?
We have quite a few tournaments in India. In fact, this is a series in which Indore is the 4th event in a 6 Grandmaster tournaments. First one was at, so it's a 6 Grandmaster tournament.
Shillong, Madurai, and then Chennai, and now this.
Yeah, now this, and then after that we have Bangalore and we have Bhubaneswar in the end. So 6 in a row. I think it's no other country is having. So that way we are lucky, because there are some players who have come because they don't have any tournament. Like Korea doesn't have any tournament. They have come to play here. So that way I think we are one of the most active federations that FIDE has already
Definitely. It has actually the activeness has gone multiple times ahead of what it was in 2021 when immediately after the COVID the tournaments had started.
Yes, in fact, at many places after COVID, everything stopped and it never recovered. So that way, I think we are doing well. We conducted Olympiad, but at the same time, the reasons for that going abroad are personal reasons, and will not get into the depth of that. But we can understand that the Indian standard is very high, and a player of rating 1,300 in India and the player of rating 1,300 in say Australia or some other country which is not all that strong. Very strong countries but not all that strong. Canada or Australia or even some African countries, but they may not be same. In Russia perhaps 1,300 of Russia may be as good as 1,300 in India. So that's also by playing with each other they keep on getting or losing rating points. So people go there abroad to a tournament where the opposition will be weak. Now that is for some short-term gain. If you are really looking at becoming a champion, then it doesn't really matter where you are playing. And it's true that the players will remain underrated by playing in India itself, but they will be strong. So rather than the sort of Kamyabi, I think Kabiliyat will make a sense, as Amir Khan has said in the Three Idiots. Yeah, so they will be playing in India. For example, many great players, Arjun Ergasi, till very late age, they had not gone abroad. So they played, Arjun, I remember he played all the Indian Grandmaster tournament, and only after crossing 2,600, he has started playing. S.L. Narayanan, yeah, S.L. Narayanan, my own student, before 2,600, he had not played any tournament abroad except they are qualified by virtue of being national junior champion, sub-junior champion or whatever. It is a government paid trip where you play in your age group. But to play private tournaments and the closed tournaments and private tournaments with your own money doesn't really make sense, because you are choosing tournaments where you will be exposed to lesser sort of field, and how it will be in your growth we don't know. So I think we avoid. But yes, if you don't have any tournament, then what do? Try to go to tournaments are not so expensive in that case, because finances do matter also. You could play whenever there is a Sports Authority of India's grant, and many of my students had that grant. So that grant used to be 5 lakhs rupees per annum or sometimes for specific play, national junior champion, sub-junior champion, to divide. And I had some discussion with other coaches who were utilizing the entire time for coaching, but I made specific budgets for my two players, my students, that 2 or 2.5 lakhs for coaching and 2.5 to 3 lakhs for playing in various tournaments, strong tournaments, even within India, because they will travel with parents in there. And it really worked, because Lalit Babu became Grandmaster and G.V. Sai Krishna became International Master. They won National Junior and Sub-Junior same year. And then G.V. Sai Krishna quit chess after becoming International Master, but just in 2024 he has made his first Grandmaster now. He is in USA, so he became an engineer and stopped playing chess. But even after stopping playing chess, or one of my students and mainly my wife's student, Aditya Udeshi, International Master, he has an online rating of 2,600 in chess.com, although he has not played any tournament in the last 10 years. But he plays only online and only 3 minutes chess. He is busy. But you develop skills, you develop the ability, and you could play. If you want, he may play a tournament. But we have to see that all players will not play chess all the time. So we have to choose, and we have to get at a level of good recreation and where you develop various faculties and choose tournament in such a way that don't. If you are spending a lot, you are actually burdening the child also to perform. Very often, I have seen remarks from parents, "Itna kharcha karke hum aa jate hain."
Right.
Yeah, that's a very. I think I don't accept such a comment. In my opinion, it's a poor test, and the children get pressurized because of such things. I'm not talking about all the parents, but ऐसा होता है. I've seen it happen. So थोड़ा सा हमें ये देखना चाहिए कि expenditure is an important part.
Yes.
Exposure is available, and as basically if you have to go to Srinagar and say Switzerland, why not have Switzerland, Srinagar or Kerala, and Lakshadweep as it was said. Obviously, there are a lot of things that can be explored, and when it comes to the games, you try to see the top games of top players, not the Indian champion necessarily, but that is where the quality is. On literature, there are the things we have to do, but I think playing abroad doesn't really mean Indian standard is strong, will not get that rating, which, well, if I'm aiming at a rating, then better to go to some countries where the chess is not so popular and strong. But does it enable us to become better? No, it enables us to.
The strength will come.
It enables us to pretend to be better. People will
right,
think
right.
that we are better than what we are. We should avoid
Yes.
that.
Sir, one thing more, like on child psychology and chess, like many children, they fear the opponent, like they are prepared well, and especially I'm asking about the initial stages. So there, the psychology of the child also works. So, like anything related.
Yeah,
to
I think
that.
psychology is very important. One of the greatest contributions to success of a player was by Botvinnik, who, apart from some other trainers, was more subjective than objective. So where he says that, and then I looked at it because I learnt it as a child and then I studied. What I studied myself after what he said, that Guru Dronacharya had so many students. He had 105 students, 5 Pandavas and 100 Kauravas, who became really good warriors. Arjun, Bhim, Duryodhan and Dushyasan. The others were not good warriors. So why? They all ate the same food, they all got the same training, maybe they were all equally well focused or they were not focused, whatever be the reason. But that fact remains that there is something like a character. And that character is important. As Botvinnik says, 4 things are to be equally held responsible for a success or lack of success of a player, and they are of equal importance. 25% is the natural talent which cannot be changed. But those who don't have natural talent, next is your health, physical health and mental health, which is very important. And that's one of the major factors which decide. I've seen some not so good players performing very well because of their extraordinary health. It's a very important factor. Third is the practice, which is only 25%. Your expertise, practice, study, that is only 25%. You see, many players study the same way and yet only few are as successful, few are more successful than others. And the fourth one is the character of the person. So not everybody can have that Vijay issue to win, and we see that character has to be developed very early. Again, developing the character is not pressure in the child, and where we are setting our objectives without proper data is also a major problem with parents, because I'll just for the benefit of viewers and parents, I just might point out that it's very important to aim at right thing. If you look at what is generally we are trying to say national championship under 8 or the national championship under 10. But let me tell you that very few under 8 champions become under 10 champions, and very few under 10 champions become under 12 champions, and so on. Very few world junior champions have become actually world champions. Under that circumstances, if you are saying that my child must come first in the inter-school tournament, it's perhaps a good ambition, but it doesn't imply that my child is going to be the world champion. So that is, again, we are at the moment looking at a short-term objective which could hamper the long-term objective. So I think if you are thinking in terms of performance, if you are planning to become world champion, then obviously your under 8 championship doesn't really matter. Not all have played under 8 championship also. So there I think we have to compare. One common mistake which parents make is sometimes the child plays well and gets 68 points, 70 points. Sometimes the child plays badly and loses 60 or 70 points. Now the parents are inclined to believe that when the child did best, that was the standard of the player, and they expect the performance at that level every time. But that is not the standard. The standard is average standard, where sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. That is how your standard of strength is decided. So if you say that last time you gained 68 and now you must get 68, eventually in 1 year's time you will cross 2,800. So that reasonable expectation also has to be done. That's a mistake. Very often parents and children also make that mistake. They think that, okay, I became 1400 to 1500, now I will become 1600. They often come down because it's also inflated sometimes. For children, the coefficient is 40, K factor is 40, which is unreasonable, because for others it is 15. And for players above 2400, it is 40. So you gain quick, but you lose also quick. That's important. But always try to see what is the actual strength of the child depending on the average performance and not at the best performance, because best is not, everybody cannot play best. In one of the important interviews by Anand said that everybody cannot win all the tournaments. So somewhere you have to give some importance to the tournament, and subconsciously strong players tend to learn the importance of important events. And in what way are the top players different than other players of similar rating? That they are able to play their best in the important tournaments. One can't play good at all times. So again, we have to concentrate, but we are not leaving any target. Like if you are playing national and we are seated 15th, so we'll try to finish in top 10th, top 10. That's a reasonable ambition. But I'll gain so many points in this. We don't know whom we are playing and what's the sort of opposition. Yes, we try to do better than our seeding. That's the common objective you could keep. Yeah, please. How are you now?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Thank you. Any more questions now? Thank you so much, sir.
So, okay, thank you
We are
for
very
joining,
lucky
and
to- yeah.
we'll watch these games, and
Yeah.
make sure that your children are not burdened with
Yeah.
your dreams.
Yes,
They
yes,
should have their own
definitely.
dreams.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So welcome back to the 10th and final round, last round of the second Indore International Grandmaster Chess Tournament being held at the IPS Academy here. The tournament started on the 9th, and now we are into the last day. Champions will be decided. The tournament is not in knockout format, it's played in the Swiss League format. Swiss League format is every player plays equal number of games, 10 rounds each, and the one who scores more is declared the champion. Players get 1 point if they win their games. If the game ends in a draw, both the players get half each, and if someone loses, player doesn't get any points. That's the counting system, and that is where the points are counted. In case two players have equal number of points, then there is a different tie break that is involved, and that tie breaks, the different type of tie breaks which you finally visit. So at the end of the 9th round, we had two players, Grandmaster Savchenko from Russia and Grandmaster Alexei Fedorov from Belarus, leading the field with 7.5 points out of 9. And among them, the better tiebreak has Alexei Fedorov has better tiebreak. Following them on 7 points are three players, Amia Audi of Goa and Grandmaster Nguyen of Vietnam. And we had Kerala, youngster from Kerala, Gautam Krishna. They were on 7 points. They could join or overtake the leaders, and there were 3 players with 6.5 points who were trying to catch up with these players. So the medals and the top prizes, top 5 positions will come only from these top 4 or 5 boards. So then the most important was the most well-fought boards. We left at this stage in the tournament. This is a top board game between Nguyen and Savchenko. If Savchenko wins, Savchenko becomes a clear champion, because although he has a worse tiebreak, the player with other player with the same point has Alexei Fedorov has made a draw. He was not able to win today. He has made a draw, and if Savchenko wins, he is the champion. If he doesn't win, he could be second or third, because a player on 7 points, Amayawadi, has a better tiebreak than Savchenko. So if Savchenko doesn't win and Amayawadi wins, then Amaya has better chance of coming second, and third, it could be Savchenko could be third. But the tiebreaks keep on changing with the result of the opponents. So it's a very complex tiebreak, and we don't know clear tiebreaks yet. But that's the reason why everybody is compelled to play. This tournament has attracted 131 participants from 16 countries and 4 continents. We have players from North America, USA, and we've got a player from South America, Peru, and we've got 3 or 4 African countries being represented, Egypt and Zimbabwe and Zambia for sure. And then we have a lot of Asian countries. More than half of the players of the tournament, Masters tournaments, have title holders, which means degrees from FIDE. The organizers also conducted a challengers tournament for those who are not eligible. These players, to be eligible to play in this tournament, you have to have an international rating of 2000 points. International rating starts at 1000 points, and those who are unrated or those who are below 2000 are not allowed to play in this Masters event. So for their convenience, and tournament was conducted, the challenger event, which attracted 287 participants from 7 countries. And that tournament is over. Now we have got the final event of this. This tournament has a prize fund of 35 lakhs rupees. 21 lakhs goes to this tournament, the Masters Championship, and 14 lakhs were given away to the Candidates Championship. The major sponsors of this, those are sponsoring this prize money, and is Indore Waste Management, Red Cross Society, Path Foundation, Navin Florin Goyal Group, HDFC Bank, Dilip Bilcon, Kirloskar Brothers, and Mega Developers, and of course IPS Academy, which has offered the venue, beautiful venue, free of cost, and all other services. The lodging and boarding provided by IPS Academy, free of cost, and that is where this tournament is successfully being conducted. Let's come to the first board game, where we have a chance of a champion emerging. We left at this stage, and the game continued. Knight D2, the logical move to stop knight coming to C4, and black played H5. Black wants to open up the rook file in order to play with that. White king is very vulnerable on E2 if the H file gets opened, because then the rook would give a check to rook would come to H2 and give a check. So white must act quickly, otherwise black would play H4. So bishop E7, important move which prevents the pawn move H4, and also intends to exchange the rooks with the knight move, rook D5. It will be interesting to see what was white planning for rook D7, because rook D7 takes a tempo, rook D5 allows free development of the D2 knight, and rook D7 is the most principled move here, I think. And if white has a satisfactory move after rook D7, then that is good. Black plays rook D5, for which I think knight E4 could be a satisfactory move. Perhaps even C4, knight E4 played, I think should be okay. Knight C4. An interesting move, he wants to play rook to E5, and that's the reason why he played rook D5. The knight on E4 could have some problems. Knight on E4 could have some serious problems if black is able to play rook E5. We'll have a break for some time. ये बंद हो गया है. हेलो, दिख नहीं रहा है. ये अपना स्क्रीन नहीं दिख रहा है वहाँ का. ऊपर बंद हो गया है. आवाज जा रही होगी शायद, लेकिन चल रहा है। I think some problems with the transmission. The knight c4 looks like unproductive move because white can play b3, but there's something more to that. Black could go knight a5 attacking the pawn, or even better rook to e5, and the knight on e4 is really in trouble. So let's see what white has. Although not a very b3 played, and the knight has been attacked, and knight a5 as we thought. Rook e5 was a complex line, but surely not great possibility when you can't play rook f8 check. And this is the reason why I want to play the same condition without the bishop on e7. Then rook e5 and king f3, rook f8 check would have been possible. But of course, what black has planned is to attack the pawn on b3 directly and without giving time for c4. So if white defends the pawn with rook b1, now black will try to attack the bishop, and then black would try to exchange both, put a rook on d8, forcing white to play b4. If white is required to play b4 in this pawn structure, white will be in a bad position. Similarly, if black gets c4 in this position, black could really be good. Black also has a plan of bishop, white also has a plan of bishop b4, so white plays rook e5. So attacking the knight, and the knight guarded with the rook. Well, an interesting move. I expected that to be guarded with the king, but he doesn't want the king in open file. So rook e8, the bishop attacked, and bishop goes and attacks the knight. White seems to be improving a bit. Rook check is also possible, or c4 is possible. Bishop into knight check. Interesting move, a committal move, trying to perhaps trap the king, but then white king is in a very shaky position. The king can't move, and because of some different possibilities. But king d3 probably is a possibility after this, though the pieces are very awkwardly placed, and one has to see if this is a direct attack. If white can play king d3 and rook d6, then there could be a chance of checkmating the opponent, so which is also a very important factor, and black has to be very careful. Rook f1, white wants to go rook f7. I think black's strange decision, rook d5 and rook e5, has led to some confusion. Now rook f5 looks forced, but rook f5 may have its own problems. Rook e7. So now, yes, this move stopped, and now if white moves the king, what happens? If king d3, rook d5, and rook into rook, yeah, so I think black is still not in a bad position, but slowly black is getting driven into worse position. Rook d5 forced to move, and white also is compelled to take because the rook is attacked. I don't see any useful sacrifice here. So rook takes, pawn takes, and now black pawn is much weaker than the white pawn. Knight c5 looks like a logical move, but knight has no good square from there. Knight d2 followed by c4 is always a possibility. Knight d6 played, a third option, and white wants to play perhaps b4 check and king c2 and rook a1 mate. So that could be b4 check and king into a4, then that would be mate. Black should start going back king b6, but at the moment king b6 has a major tactical problem because of knight c8 check. So it seems that rook d7 may have to be played, and if b4 check, then king going to b6 could be option. White threatens b4 check, and if king b6, then knight c8 check, picking up the rook, and if king into a4, then probably white will be able to get some meeting attack. Although it's not very clear with rook on e7, because b4 check, king into pawn, and king c2, there is a disturbing rook e2 check. So king b6, preparing for king b6 may not be necessary, but also it looks like a somewhat wise decision. Rook d7 is another decision that can be taken. Rook c7 was played, directly attacking the pawn. I think white is going to play c4, then black takes and brings the king to b4. So white plays rook f7, offering the pawn, and black bishop is attacked. Black takes the pawn, and now black saves the bishop. If white can attack the bishop more number of times, then probably the bishop could get in trouble. But rook e7 is not a trick here, because black plays bishop into d6 attacking. White can get back the pawn on b7, can be captured with rook rather than the knight, and the black king is not in a very comfortable position, although because of the reduced material there is no direct way of attacking, but white is trying to impose the position finally. Black rook is now required to remain in C line in order to safeguard the king. Knight is in an awkward position, but knight can move to f7 and then bishop f6. So seems that there is no improvement for this knight, and then what does one do? King d3 doesn't lead to anything as well. g4 can be met with h4, so here h3, bishop c3 check, and bishop b4 back. So black has given the d4 square. White can play king to d4 now. Black wants to play rook to c3 perhaps, but then releasing white knight could be very dangerous. For example, if you look at a variation king d4, rook c3, knight d8, rook into b3, knight c6 checkmate. So black has to be little careful with this rook c3 played, and knight d8 looks like a interesting move preventing the captures, but black would probably move the bishop and attack the knight. So knight comes to e5, same as d8, and none of the pawns can be captured because of checkmate. The bishop cannot move because the rook is attacked, and rook cannot move because of rook cannot move to other file because of knight c6 mate. So bishop cannot be moved and king cannot be moved, and the pawns will be. So this, all black can do is to move the rook along the c file. Now is that adequate? Because the pawns could be lost, and rook into b3. Now okay, he wants to take the a4 pawn. So after taking the b3, there is no mate. So rook b6. Yeah, I think black has found the only moves, and white takes the pawn now. Now we can see the game is heading towards a draw because black's pieces are now active, and white is still trying to checkmate, but it doesn't seem to be logical. White has made it clear that white is playing for a draw, because after rook into g3, rook into g3, bishop into g3, knight c4 or knight c6, black sacrifices the knight, white sacrifices knight for the a pawn, and it becomes an obvious draw. So now a draw can be expected. Rook g6 was not necessary, g4 was also possible, but here this move gets a rook exchange. A draw can be expected. We move to the second board, which is ended in a draw. So Fedorov is assured of second position, and if first board is Savchenko doesn't win, then Fedorov is assured of first position. Here we have third board game where Adi Amaya, who has a better tiebreak than Boris Savchenko but half point less, is playing against Nilesh Shah, and if Amaya wins this, he could come second or third. Amaya is better. Amaya was better with black pieces, and now it seems that black still has good advantage. Black has very good pawn structure, and perhaps it's wise for black to move back the b4 rook and then play for e5. A nice plan. Black wants to rook b7. I thought rook b8 was as good as c5. So white plays logically. White wants black to fix the pawns on white squares. In that case, the bishop scope would be hampered. So a logical strategic game by both the players, and rook b5 back. So okay, with this idea of knight coming to a4, I think white is no longer worse, and white has probably nothing to worry now. Pawn is not necessary, but sometime it will have to be played. h4 seems to be dangerous because black rook could come into the g file with pawn into pawn. So here a little preferable for black still perhaps, because black could put bishop e6 and bishop d5, which is at the moment not working because bishop e6 allows rook e2 and the bishop or the e7 pawn is lost. If black can get the bishop to d5, it could get some tempos and create weakness in white's position, but one has to worry about knight b6 all the time again. So we'll move to board 4 now, where master theoretician Igor Glek is playing against Ratnakaran of India, and Ratnakaran had played a very interesting opening, and it looked very confusing, of course. And here we probably are going to see a complex game here continued because white has given up a piece for 3 pawns. Somewhere I think black was in a bad position, but Ratnakaran is a player who has got a lot of resources. We'll go back to the game quickly. As Ratnakaran is half a point above Glake. It's very important. No, I think both of them are on the same point, 6.5. So one could come 7.5. If that can be done, they would have good results. Now let's see where things started not so good here for white. At one stage I felt that white was much better. Here I thought queen d2 was a logical move. I played queen c2 and black did not play queen d6. So perhaps a trap in queen d6 which I had missed. Queen d6, knight f5, queen into f5 and rook f1, and the queen could get into real trouble. A nice trap. Queen d6, knight f5, queen into rook f1 with g3 to come. So queen goes to d8 and then b3. And white wants to focus against the. It was interesting to move rook e c1 here actually, just to keep the pieces. But then what do you do with the a rook? So rook e d1 perhaps. After b3, black correctly exchanges rooks. In second rook exchange, I thought rook c1. So no pressure along the c1. And now bishop b5 looks like a possibility. Black has too many weaknesses. I don't know how this position does it seem to be really tenable. Black has lost a pawn. Black is playing for counterplay. Black really gives another pawn for counterplay. Bishop into pawn, bishop into knight, knight d5. So does one really have compensation for 2 pawns? Looks not so. Knight d6. Bishop b3 was a safe option for which black might have played something like knight c3. Knight d6, a confusing move. Queen d7, knight attack. Bishop. Knight into b7, king into b7, bishop b5. Queen c6 was a 4-pawn doubly attacked, f4 pawn guarded, b3. Suddenly the black protected pass pawn starts moving and black could win some material here. White decides to blockade with knight on b1, but not a particularly good option. So knight b3, so he decides to give a piece. It was not possible to block it with knight b1 because the knight into a4 would eventually boil down to knight c3 being played. So white now has lost a piece for the pawn, and let's see how white's position is. 3 pawns for a piece, so white is not worse, but black will always get a perpetual check. So that's what one is afraid of. So white is activating the knight, but there is no real target. H pawn offered. So queen into h5 at the moment is guarded, and h5 threatens to advance. So queen h3 to stop h6 and to start its own attack with queen h2 check and queen h1 check. Knight c5, queen h2 check, king f3, and queen knight into c5, not queen h1, knight into c5, pawn into c5, queen g1. So c5 pawn is attacked, so queen b5 looks forced. Queen d1 check can be played, but queen d1 check, king e4 is impossible because it loses the queen, but white could probably play king e4, not possible because of knight c3 check. So queen d1 check, king f2, then queen d2 check, king f3. It seems that there is nothing much for in this position. Queen d1 check should be tried. Queen d1 check. Another problem is queen e2, because the endgame can be very dangerous with that h pawn. It has to be analyzed immediately after. What happens after queen d1 check, queen e2, and exchange the queens in black plays f5. That's possible. Knight f6. So this is a time when players actually need a lot of time, and I think they are very short of time. There's a clock is showing 0.00, which means something wrong with the clock. Let's move to the 5th board, where Zuma Marat has 6.5 points and his opponent top seed P. Inyan has only 6 points. So Zuma Marat's game is important from the prize trophy point of view rather than Inyans at this stage. So we'll go back where we left. Black has been playing very risky because of the option of knight d5 is there, bishop into rook. He has given the queen because otherwise there would have been real serious consideration. And now because white has less minor pieces, it may not be possible for white to carry on attack. Queen a4 attacking the bishop on a1, and bishop goes to e5, and knight to c7, trying to pave way for the knight to d5 as well as with a tempo attacking the bishop, bishop c8, and queen a2 check. The king must be careful. It's allowing a check is possible here. Knight e8 check, king h8. What has happened to king? Yeah, the bishop is on. So bishop h6 check is also possible. White has got a dangerous attack, but let's see if white has any checkmate patterns. So it doesn't seem to have any checkmate patterns to start with. So h4, bishop d4 check. He gets a knight e5. Now there is no entry. If white wanted to penetrate into black's camp, then queen f7 was a chance here. But queen f7 threatens nothing and prevents nothing. So perhaps that was the reason to reject that. Bishop f4 was a plan. Queen f7, knight d8, queen e7, queen d7, queen f7 was. Queen f7 seems to pose some problems. h4, bishop d4 check, king h1, knight e5, bishop h3, rook a6, queen d2, white was to penetrate at g5 or h6, rook a1, king g2 unpinning, and knight into d3, one more pawn lost, queen into d3, rook into c1. White will take on d6 probably or attack the rook first, queen d2, rook g1 check, queen d2, not a very great move, I think. Queen f4, bishop g2, black will play bishop e5 now, and oh, rook f2. Rook f2. So what does he want to do for the obvious queen into d6? Knight e5, a type of fortress, or rather a type of counter attack. Black wants to play knight g4 check and knight g4 check, king h1. So okay, queen d8, bishop e6, knight g4 check, king h1 was possible, bishop e6. Well, white can give a discovered check, knight f6 check, king g7, queen e7 check, bishop f12, knight e8 check, and I think it's not clear how to improve, but white is trying h5. White should try here, but black is defending accurately. Black has made a clever decision of giving up the queen. Now white probably does not have enough pieces. Had the g2 bishop joined the attack, it would have been wonderful, but it can't join the attack. Now queen and knight are threatening mate, so white threatens mate with queen e7 check quickly. So g4 square is guarded, so there is no knight f6 mate. So rook b2, queen d7 check, king f8, and queen d6 check, and king g7, and queen e7 check. So a drawback, perpetual check, which means that we have one player going to 7 point and one player going to 6.5 point. Let's come back to the top board, which is basically the main games heading towards a draw. It was heading towards a draw when we left. Bishop into pawn and knight d7. A nice combination would be rook into h5, bishop into e5, and there would be king into rook into e5, rook b5 check, king moves rook into rook, king into rook, and king b3 and the a pawn queens. So knight d7. Black should be in a position to, white should be in a position to give up the knight for the a pawn and exchange rooks, otherwise not so easy. White has chance of king b6, king c6, threatening, king threatening to take the, not really threatening to take the bishop, but yeah. So what happens to if black moves the bishop? King c4, knight a6 check, winning the rook was certain. Knight a3 check. So now the knight is trapped, but rook into g3, rook into c5 check is not easy ending. h4, and now we need to see what does one do for bishop f2, bishop f2, and he moves knight and rook's direction, the pawn joins us. So bishop f4 first. If rook into pawn, then bishop e3 would win the knight. So rook has to move to a unprotected square against which black will now play bishop e3. So white plays rook f5, rook h5, or rook d5. Black will play bishop e3 here, and the c5 knight is pinned, and looks like a tough position for Gwen. Now searching already a pawn up. So we could have the champion on the first board and the player finishing second on the second or third boards. So we are left at this stage, and moves have not come. So this is the exact position where we are left, and the position can't be the same. We'll wait for the moves to come. Let's go to fourth game, Glake versus Ratnakaran, and I think there will be perpetual attacking possibilities. So queen into g3 is offered, but white will get queen into a5 check, and white will have a lot of checks. Queen into h5 also can be taken, but there are checks, and the players are thinking it's a single time control, so you don't know how will you be able to tackle the position where there is less time. So let's have a 1 minute break here. Don't go away. After 1 minute we're going to see these games again. ठंडा थोड़ा ज़्यादा है, आप कम कर दीजिए. ठंडा 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 ज़्यादा है.
ठंडा ज़्यादा है.
हाँ, कितना टेम्परेचर है? पानी तो So welcome back to the last round, 10th round of the second Indore International Grandmaster Chess Tournament. As we know, the tournament has been played in two parts for last 7 days from 9th of January. It has played in the two formats, that is one for the specific players who are below 2000 rating points, and this is the Masters event, which is for the players only above 2000 ELO rating points, which starts at ELO rating points starts at 1000, and those who are above 2000 those are allowed to play. The prize money 35 lakhs was divided into two events. The Masters event, which says 21 lakhs, and the Challengers event had a prize money of 14 lakhs. Now we have a resulting game on the top board. So Boris Savchenko on the first board has won this game, and it was we'll just have a quick look of this game because Savchenko now emerges champion, and the overnight leaders Savchenko and Fedorov are taking first and second positions. Fedorov had a better tie break, so Savchenko tried to win, and a very interesting game, quite a risky play by White at times, but and now we see this was the position we are seeing at this position. Black has lost White has lost a pawn, and White gained back the pawn, but some possible Rook G5 looks like also a right move, but for Bishop into G3, I think here the modest the knight moves are not now possible because Rook check and Rook into pawn. He plays a very risky move because of this. I think here some steps should have been taken here to take the pawn, perhaps capturing the pawn with knight was a wiser decision. When Black takes both the pawns, then it's going to be tough because the bishop is much stronger here. Now there is a threat of playing a pawn ending, which means that there will be no pieces except king. So he must play here, knight d7, rook check. If king moves, rook is lost, so knight check, and king attacks the knight. Knight cannot move because it is pinned, so the only way to save the knight is this. And now White threatens to give a check and win black rook, but Black plays this. Black is in a strong position, and White's only chance here was to take on G3, but after rook into C5 check, the black pawn simply marches on. But rook into C5 check, king B6 was a possibility, and that was the best thing White could do. White played H4 here, and I was just wondering if Black would actually take bishop into H4 here, but for bishop into H4 he wants to play rook F5 probably, means creating some followed rook F5 followed by rook F4. So White plays Black plays an accurate move here, bishop F4 attacking the rook. Rook must go to a square where it's not protected, like rook to F5 or rook to D5. In both cases, Black simply plays bishop E3. The knight is attacked 3 times and defended only twice, which means the knight is lost and everything is lost. So the Vietnamese grandmaster will go and resigned here. Oh, he played on some moves, and that yes, he gets back the rook, but then the a pawn queens. This is a basic variation. The a pawn cannot be stopped, and as we can see, knight e7 can be tried, but after the simplest move would be king c4 apart from any other moves, and that's just the lost position. Knight e7, even a4 is all right, and if knight d5 then bishop d2. So here knight e7, a4, knight d5, Black has to be careful not allowing knight b4 check. So a2 can be postponed with bishop d2, and then Black simply plays a2 and a1. Pawn queens very fast, and Black won here. So Savchenko is the champion, and on the second board, the game which has ended in a quick draw, Fedorov emerges second. They were the leaders after the 9th round. They had 7.5 points. So Savchenko has reached 8.5, Fedorov has reached 7, and Amayawadi is trying to reach 7 points here. And here we have, the game has actually ended, and Nilas has won this. Nilas was in a difficult position for some time, but after he got c5, it was a good position, and somewhere we had lost the moves of this game. Somewhere Black has lost the track completely, and the last position the pawn is from. We left at this stage, and a lot of things happened thereafter. We'll quickly have a look at this. So we don't know who will be finishing third here. This was the position when black took some fundamentally inaccurate decision of capturing. It was necessary to have a pawn on d6 to prevent the white knight into getting into action. After this move, white knight really became strong, and white is now still white plays for a win here. And now we see position may not have its own merits, but black king is weak in the attack against the king started, and if the rooks are not there, black has no problems probably either. But now we have white attacking black's king. So black threatened with checkmate, starting with rook h5 check. A lot of checks. There is no checkmate, rook h5 checking f4, and knight checkmate, knight check, winning the rook. So he plays rook into c5, a gambit that is played to get back some counterplay, but there's no counterplay involved. And Adi played a fantastic game, has actually lost the game. And then we go to Ratnakaran, and the game should end in a draw. It looks like a, oh no, this it looks like a perpetual check. Queen b6 check, and yes, it's still in progress. Queen b6 check, but if black escapes the check, then white could get mated. So I don't think there is a chance to escape the checks, but still, after queen b6 check, king d7, and queen d6 check, king is running to e8. Yes, it's not easy now for Clay, and it's possible that Ratnakaran may get into the third position. Oh no, it could be Zoom Amaret has made a draw against top seed Inyan. So we have the top results, and we already know who the champions and second are. Both places go to USSR. The first place goes to the Russian Boris Savchenko, and the second place goes to Belarusian Alexei Fedorov, and third position we probably have Ratnakaran but some games are still going on, and Ratnakaran could Ratnakaran or Nilasa could be in the third position. We'll have the clear idea. So we stop our streaming here, and we'll have some interviews of the medal winners and the top players. And nice to be watching this for last 7 days. We had a lot of guests, and I hope you enjoyed. And this recordings will be available on Indore Chess Association and the MP Chess Association, and also on the channel of the IPS Academy. So do watch at leisure wherever you want. You will be able to see all the episodes and how the games went. Thank you for joining all these days, and goodbye for now.